Shalom. I'd like to say all praises due unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. My name is Conowak from Great Millstone, Toronto, doing this lesson. And it's regards to Israelites that are in China, known as Ganzohao, or they call it like Chocolate City. It's a city in China where a lot of Israelites inhabit, and I did not know that, because, that's why there's a scripture that says in Hosea, I could get it, because our seed is scattered all throughout the earth, and there's a lot of them came from Nigeria, some of them, Ghana, and they're basically like they buy a lot of goods and they bring it back to their country, so that's Jake's hustle. Hosea. So this lesson is gonna be Jake's in China, known as Ganzhou, or Chocolate City, and the Tang Dynasty. So let's get this. Hosea 1:10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that the place where it is said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the son of the living power. So the Israelites, they're scattered, right? According to prophecy, Deuteronomy 28, going to 16 to 68 goes into the curses that befall the Israelites if they disobey the Heavenly Father. And it says that the Israelites are going to be scattered on the four corners of the earth, right? And they're not going to know who they are, right? And that's what happened to us, and that's why we're scattered all throughout the earth. I have to get water. So I'll get some water. Yeah, I had to get some water, Salakia. So probably the first thing I'm going to go into is the Tang Dynasty, and I'm going to go into the Wu-Tang, right? Because that goes back to Jake in China, and so in the AI overview, the Wu meaning Chinese. In Chinese, Wu primarily translated to shaman or sorcerer. So this is where Rizzo, right? He probably formed that. He formed that, right, because they push nothing but destruction. But even though Rizzo Wu-Tang, he knows who he knows he's an Israelite. He would go to the school in Harlem, that One West. So they're familiar with the Apostle Tahar and all that, the elders of the One West, and so it's a sorcerer, shaman, right? So that's kind of, so that's deep. I didn't know what that means. Like, I didn't know what the Wu means, right? So it's a sorcerer or shaman, right? So the Tang on the Wikipedia. So like, one second. I just had it. So okay, one second. It says in the AI overview, the Tang meaning in Chinese. In Chinese, Tang primarily means soup, broth, hot water. It can also refer to this surname Tang or part of other words or place names. The surname Tang is a well-known Chinese surname with a historical significance. It is associated with the Shang Dynasty, which that was also another Israelite dynasty, right? The Shang Dynasty, because Jake had dynasties throughout Asia, throughout China and Japan, right? So the Shang Dynasty was a big one. The Han Dynasty as well, primarily with the Chang Tang, the dynasty founder, right? So it was a lineage that there were kings, so the Tangs. So any Moabite who has that name Tang, he's most likely a Jake. So what was I gonna get? Even Bruce Lee as well. He's a Lee, and he's a Jake. That's why Bruce Lee had. When you watch his interviews, he's very knowledgeable. He's very well spoken. And he has flavor. That's why when you watch the movie Enter the Dragon and stuff. But so let's go into the Tang on the Chat GPT. So I'm gonna just play the audio and see where the Rakakwadash is gonna lead. So okay, where is it? What happened? It's not working.
Your phrase, Black Guangzhou Tang Dynasty, could refer to several different things depending on context. Let me try to unpack it for you. 1. Guangzhou in the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 AD. Guangzhou, then known as Panyu, or Guangzhou, was a major port city during the Tang Dynasty. It was one of the key hubs of the Maritime Silk Road, connecting China with Persia, Arabia, India, and East Africa.
So you heard that? So, going to Asia, the Silk Road. Also have this book that I want to bring out as it goes into the Jakes in China. It's a very good book called the Historical Atlas of the Jewish People from the time of the Patriarch to present. All right, very good book. I'll bring out certain facts, bring out some scriptures. Let's play the rest.
During this period, many foreigners, Arabs, Persians, Indians, and East Africans, lived and traded in Guangzhou. There is some historical record of Africans, sometimes called black people in ancient texts, visiting.
Yes, so Israelites that were scattered throughout East Africa, and they would go throughout Asia and trade, like maritime trade.
Or settling there via maritime trade. This is sometimes cited as some of the earliest contact between China and Africa. 2. Black, as in the presence of Africans. Some historians and scholars refer to the African traders, sailors, or slaves who may have arrived in Tang-era Guangzhou as part of the broader Indian Ocean trade network. However, direct evidence is limited and often debated. The Tang Dynasty was remarkably cosmopolitan, and Guangzhou was one of its most diverse cities. The presence of dark-skinned foreigners was noted in some Chinese texts, often described as Kunlun or Zhangyi. Though these terms...
Yeah, so the Kunli or the Kunlan, you could go into that Kunlun, Israelites that were scattered, or that was in China and they were known over there. Those were... Let's play the rest.
Terms could also refer to dark-skinned people from Southeast Asia or the Indian subcontinent, not necessarily sub-Saharan Africa.
So you also have Jakes in India as well, known as the Siddhi people. they call them the untouchables, or the Dravidians. They're Israelites in India, Pakistan, you know, and they were in power during the Middle Ages, during the Dark Ages, you know, and they had maritime trade, they had slaves, they had, they had everything, you know.
3. Black Guangzhou could also refer to something modern. If you're referring to a modern cultural or artistic movement, for example, Black people in modern Guangzhou or artistic representations of Black people in relation to the Tang Dynasty, that is a more recent phenomenon. In recent years...
Yeah, so basically, Jake, they, a lot of them left from Nigeria and Ghana, some of them, and they learned, they moved to China, and they inhabited Guangzhou. They inhabited it, you know, and they traded, you know, like they're, you know, it's the same thing what's going on now, you know, and you know, there are a lot, like, because they buy a lot of goods and they ship it to back to certain parts of West Africa and Africa, right? And then Jake, you know, Jake breeds up those they call them the rice bunnies, you know, these Oriental women, you know. There's nothing wrong with having an Oriental woman, man, because Eve is, you know, Eve's gonna give you hell, you know. I'm just putting that out there. What's the next thing? What was I gonna get? Also, Jake, you know, Jake, a lot of the martial arts and all the stuff and these strategies. I have this book known as The Art of War, but it's like broken apart. So I bought a new one recently. A very good book to have, you know. Teaches you a lot of things, you know, things to it teaches you a lot, it teaches you a lot of strategies. You know, I got that, I know I got inspired from one of the guys in our camp. He's no longer in our camp, but Daniel, he gave me this, you know, I got this, you know, and I read it. Very good book, you know, and very knowledgeable. You know, also Jake's into martial arts, you know, because that's always been our spirit. Because I grew up watching those like those movies, those kung fu movies. I grew up watching those as a child, you know, and we would always train and practice, you know. So a lot of our people, like a lot of guys in the truth, they train, they do martial arts and stuff. What do you call it? Wing Chun and all these different martial arts that certain birds in the camp, you know, they're very they're very, like, they're talented, you know, and yeah, they do their thing, right? Cause that's always been our people's spirit. Get Psalms 144. Psalm 144 and 1. Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. So the martial arts and, you know, all that training, you know, that's always been our people's spirit, you know. I think there's another one in Psalms where, you know, like King David said that he leaped over a wall, you know. So Jake, you know, had, you know, strength and, like, you know, power, you know, spiritual power. That's what, like, they show us these things in these martial arts movies, man. As a youth, you know, like jumping over walls and stuff. You know, that's always been our people's spirit. But so I'm gonna get this in the historical atlas of the Jewish people. From the Jewish people from the times of the patriarchs to the present, right? So let's go into it. Page 166. All right, it says the Jews of China. Jewish merchants arrived in China together with other traders from the west when the famous Silk Road was open and safe, perhaps as early as the 2nd century BC. The oldest extant testimony to their present there, however, date from beginning of the 8th century, the Tang Dynasty. All right, so the Tang Dynasty. Let's lock it. One second. So the Tang Dynasty, they had like maritime trade, right? They were traders, and they inhabited China, Japan. You know, it says it is business. It is a business letter written in Persian using the Hebrew script. So Persian. So so Jake was also going to Persia. There's a lot of Israelites in Persia as well, right? Because they were traders, right? Even going back to the time of basically Jake being exiled, like during the Persian captivity, we went to Persian captivity, So Jake always been intermingling with these heathen. It is a business letter written in Persian using Hebrew script, discovered by Sir Aurel Stone at Khotin, a western outpost of the Chinese Empire. Right, so Jake Jake was ruling China, man. That's why in the kingdom, you damn Moabites are going down. You're going into slavery, man. Right, because when you read about, I'm just gonna, I wrote these certain scriptures down. Get Judges 3 and 14 to 17. Basically when our people were under the Moabite during the time in the land of Moab, like we were in captivity under the Moabites, man. In the land, and because when you read about the judges, like Jake always went, our people always went off. So the Most High would always punish us and bring us to these different captivities. So Moab was a big captivity that we were under. So it is safe to assume that the Jewish and Muslim merchant also lived in the port towns of southern China, Canton, perhaps Ningpo, and Changchou, but never permits settled there. Right, so there, Jake. Also, they said Muslim, the Moors, right? They were they're merchantmen as well, right? And they were trading. So Jews, Muslim, right? So it says during the Mongol period, the Young Dynasty, Jewish and Muslim are mentioned together in in decrees pertaining to taxation, perhaps on ritual slaughter and Levitical marriage, the custom of marrying the widow of one deceased brother. Right, when you read about the book of Ruth, because Ruth was a Moabite, right, and like, you could read about that too. Ruth, she's a Moabite, but she end up, because of the one of the brothers, or like one of the guys, he died. So there's a like, when you read about the book of Ruth, it goes into that, and then basically, um, like King David, he comes out of that. He comes out of that lineage of Ruth, the Moabite, right? But our lineage really goes. Our lineage goes to the father, our paternal um, lineage. It goes to the father. But Ruth, Moabites. No, she was a Moabite, and she was in order, right? And so we're gonna put these Moabites, you Ammonites, all you nations into slavery, right? And they're gonna be subject, right? They're gonna be subject. So since no since no traces of these communities remains, it is possible to estimate their size. All we know is that Marco Polo, who visited China towards the end of the 13th century, recounted meeting many Jews in Khanbalik, um, Peking, and Hankou. Right, so Jake was scattered. I don't know if Marco Polo. I don't know about him, if he's a Jake or what. But I remember watching that on. I think there's a series. I think it was on Netflix or one of those. A very good series, Marco Polo. In fact, the only real Jewish community in China was the one of the Kengping. It originally dates back from the 11th century AD, when approximately 1,000 Jews bringing cotton from either Persia and India received permission to settle in this town in central China. Central China, right? So there's going to be a lot of Jake, that are scattered, that are in China, Japan. They're going to look like the Moabites, but they're Jake, right? Because we intermingled. Jake had a lot of rice babies, if you know what I mean. The rice babies, man. All right, we're gonna get them, man. In 11th, it says in 1163, a synagogue was built in Kafing, which was rebuilt several times over years. So Jake had synagogue. They're settled. They're steel. Their Salados, erected in the year 1489, 1512, and 1663, attributed different dates to the fact arrived of the Jews of China. So yeah, Jake. All right. That's why Jake. A lot of people are in China. They're trading. Even there's a lot of Jake, that's in America that's moving, that have moved to China, as well as Jakes in the Caribbean, like Jamaica. A lot of Benjamites is in China, has moved to China. There, and they could speak the Mandarin, and in Jamaica too. There's a lot of Moabites and Japanese, but there's a lot of like Moabites, and they have the ports. They run the roads, and you know and they're doing a lot of traffic in Jamaica, man. You know the Moabites. You know, but and attribute different dates to the first arrived of the Jews in China. There the very early date which the two latter scholars suggested, the beginning of the first century or early, should be regarded circumspectly. The inspection in an attempt to reconcile Jewish and Confucius belief, right? So that's why this is a very good book. The book, the Art of War. I also have a different book. If I could find it. Yeah, this is it right here. Yeah, I have this book. This one's called the Book of the Five Rings. Um, you could. They also have a CD or a DVD. You could like listen to it. The Book of the Five Rings. Miyam, like Miyam Natu Mashi. You know, those are like good books because a lot of these beliefs and knowledge, you know, it goes back to the Jakes, that were in China and stuff, you know. So that's why there even like a lot of the strategies what they use in the military, it goes back to this book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, right? It goes back to this, the Book of the Five Rings. This is a good book too, right? It says Chinese sources make no mention at all of the Jews of Kafing, but in 1607, the well-known Jesuit missionary Metto Ricci met at Meking a man from Kafing called Ai Tang, who told him about his community. According to the Reci, there was a Hebrew like Penta like Pentateuch in the Kafing synagogue, right? So basically going into the Torah, going into like the books of the prophets, and the Jews there practiced circumcision and refrained from eating pork, right? So Jake wasn't eating pork over there, man. The Jews, right? Because they knew the law. But apart from the stels, the only like tangible evidence of the Catholic community are several prayer books discovered by the Christian missionaries in the 19th century, as well as a community registered from the middle of the 19th century, written in Hebrew and Chinese, right? So they were also writing these things down in Hebrew and Chinese, right? So the missionaries, like these Jesuits, they went and they took a lot of that information, right? Shalom. Yabashim Shabakata Shalom. So Isaiah 16:4. Let mine outcast dwell with thee, Moab, be thou covert to them from the face of the spoilers, for the extortioners is at the end. The spoilers ceaseth, and the oppressor are consumed out of the land. Yeah. Moabite, they had us in captivity, man, in the land, and even right now, right? Like they run all these damn all these beauty salons, all right, all these convenience stores, you know. Moab is doing all kinds of stuff, man. They're giving our people rats. They're giving our people so-called like you feel like you're like you will think that you're like eating chicken. You're probably eating like a rat, and all these fucking wicked, these wicked things, man. You know. So Over the years, the Jews of Kefeng has been dispersed or assimilated into the local environment. They adopted Jewish surnames and customs, and some attained that prominent position in the in the Mediterranean. Sorry, in the Mandarinian. Sorry, like I guess the Mandarinian. Right, like that's the language over there in like some of their languages in China, and in the army. But it said by the beginning of the ninth century, the community had no rabbi and had virtually ceased to exist. Right, that's what happened, man. Our people forgot who they were. Right, I think it's Jeremiah, if I could find it. I have a whole bunch of scriptures written down, but was Jeremiah 17:4. And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever. That's what happened. We forgot who we were, and prophecy. We had to forget who we were, you know. Like I said, we had to forget who we were, right? Because like for prophecy's sake, right? Like that's the only reason that we're in this condition, because we had to eat of the tree of good and evil. So we're eating the tree of the evil right now, man. In the kingdom, we're going to eat the good, right? Today, there are still a handful of Chinese who consider themselves descendants of the Catholic Jews. Rumors has it that Chinese former president Luo Shou-chi was one of them, but to all intent and purpose, their Jewish identity has been lost. Many Jewish communities, right? They're not Jewish; they were Israelites. Many Jewish communities were formed in China during the 19th and 20th century. In Hong Kong, the Jews were permitted, and that's when basically like when Esau went to China, and called himself Jewish and started doing his stuff, right? So this is a very good book. See this? Very good book. I see that. This is like the synagogues, over there in China, and this is like the map of the places that they migrated to. Yeah. All right, I might get a couple scriptures and then close. So, okay. One second. First Corinthians. One second. First Chronicles 18. Yeah, David. So yeah, this is First Chronicles 18:1. Now after this, it came to pass that David smote the Philistine and subdued them, and took Gath and her towns out of the hand of the Philistine, and he smote Moab, and the Moabites became David's servant and brought gifts. So King David was putting in work, man, and was subduing, these Philistine and the Moabites, right? And they were paying tribute. Even going to the time of King Solomon, the Moabites was paying tribute, to Solomon as well. It is. What else again? Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11, and I started at 13. The envy also Ephraim shall depart from the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off, and Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. So, after the elect, right? The house of David is going to be built up again. It's not going to be parted. And right now, like we're already living, in the house of David, and the northern tribes, the branch. When you go into Ezekiel 37. But they shall fly upon the shoulder of the Philistines or the Hamites to the west. Sorry, I guess toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay hands on Edom. Right, so you damn Edomites, man, you're going down hard. Right. That's why I said the earth's given to the hand of the wicked. 2 Esdras 6 and 9. For Esau, the end of the world, Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So we're seeing the end of his world, of his domain. And Moab and the children of Ammon shall obey them. Yeah. Yeah, you Moabites, you damn you Chinese, you Japanese, you're going down. Alright, and we're gonna put your ass in slavery, we're gonna take your woman, there's gonna be a slave trade, and that's it. You're going down, you have to pay tax. Get Jeremiah. I wrote some scriptures. Jeremiah 9:26. It says, Egypt and Judah and Edom and the children of Ammon and Moab, all right, all that are in the utmost corner that dwell in the wilderness, for all those nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in their heart. But that's why a lot of people, they're trusting in Egypt, they're trusting in the Esau system, they're trusting in, oh, I'm gonna move to Asia, I'm gonna move to Thailand, I'm gonna move to China, right? And they're not trusting in the Heavenly Father. So that's why the Most High is calling our people uncircumcised. Second, and for younger brothers, you could write down these scriptures. Just put this on pause. And write down these scriptures. 2 Samuel 8 and 1. And after this, it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them, and David took Methagin out of the hand of the Philistine. The same thing. And he smote Moab and measured them with a line and cast them down to the ground, even with the 2 line measured he put to death, and with 1 full to keep alive. Right, so King David, man, he was doing a lot of. They would say he was doing a lot of killing, he was doing a lot of that, man. Yeah, because you heathen are nothing but pagans, man. And so the Moabites became David's servant and brought gifts. All right, so that was another one. Yeah, Psalm 60. Psalm 60 and 8. Moab is my washpot. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. Right, so your Moabites are going down. Right, you're going to be subject. And you Moabites are nothing but like natural born, like subjects. They're very submissive. you know, over Edom will I cast out my shoe, man. So yeah, the Lord's gonna kick you out, man, Esau. You're gonna lose that power. You're gonna lose that, your like your footing. Okay, Isaiah. I'm just going fast. I have Isaiah 16 and 6. Isaiah 60, because there's a whole bunch. There's over, I think, 151. Um, there's a whole 151. When you go on the blue letter, there's over 151 references going into Moab. So I just wrote down some of these things, of these scriptures going into Moab. So Isaiah 16 and 6, we have heard the pride of Moab. He is very proud, even of his haughtiness and his pride, and to his wrath. But his lies shall not be so. Yeah, so the Moabite, their pride, they look down on us. They'll call us all kinds of things in their language, call us nigger, and all that shit, man. You're gonna. I can't wait till the elect gets a kingdom, man. All right. So Jeremiah 40 and 11. Jeremiah 40 verse 11. Likewise, when all the Jews that were in Moab, among the Ammonite and Edom, and that were in all the countries, heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant of Judah, so that's in Babylonian captivity, and that he had set over them, set over them Gibeleth, the son of Anna, So Jake was, all over, during the time of, the Babylon captivity, like mingling. Jake is always mingling their seed, man. Get Jeremiah 48. Then probably close out. Don't want to go too long. Jeremiah 48 and 1. Against Moab, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, woe unto thee, Nebo, for it is spoiled. Kerith is confounded, and taketh Misgad is confounded. Right, so this is their idol that they worship. Right, it was I believe a Babylonian god that the Moabites were worshiping. Right, and they still they're worshiping idols of Buddha and all these stuff. They're really worshiping RP. They're basically they're really worshiping Jake. So brother posted the scripture. Yeah, Isaiah. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of scriptures. Isaiah 16 and 5. And in mercy shall the throne be established, and he shall sit in it in truth and in tabernacle of David, judging and seeking judgment and hasting righteousness. So the house of David is going to be established. So King Masha, we believe that he's King David in the reincarnation, right? And he's gonna be exalted, and Yahweh Shai, it says how Numbers 24 and 5, how godly are the tents of Jacob and tabernacles of Israel, as the valley of they spread forth as a garden by the riverside, as the tree of lin, aloes, which the Lord have planted, as a cedar tree beside the waters. Right. So Jake was having a lot of seed, right, and they had a big big tree, man. All right, so we're gonna go and we're gonna populate the earth again, man. All right, because that's why it said be fruitful and multiply. The Lord says to be fruitful and multiply, and that's what we're gonna do, man. The elect, right? We're gonna have a lot of babies, a lot of sex, man. All right, we're gonna get the finest of you Moabite, you Japanese. Me, I like the Asian, right? I like Asian woman, Japanese, you know. But everybody had, some brothers like Persian or Elam. I like the more Oriental. But Numbers 24:8, God brought him forth out of Egypt. He have at it were the strength of a unicorn. He shall eat up the nations. He shall eat up the nation his enemies, and break their bones and pierce through with an arrow. That's what's gonna happen, man. Your nations, right? Cause when you read about I believe it Balaam, right? He tried to put curses, because like Moab tried to put curses, you know, on our people, and Balaam basically told him like, no, you can't. When you read in that, number 24, right? Balaam and Moab, they were trying to put curses on our people, man. Right, and they're doing nothing but enchantments. Like that's right. Me, I go to Jamaica sometime, and they have the Chinese, like they run all the grocery stores. They run the fucking ports in Jamaica. You know, um, they're doing all kinds of stuff, man. They have a lot of power over there in Jamaica. You can like a lot of the people that live in Jamaica. A lot of people like who live in Jamaica, like they have to pay to go on the beach. Like they're not allowed to their own beach, man. You know, it says Deuteronomy 23:3. Ammon, our Moabite, shall not enter in the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter the congregation of the Lord. Right, so you Moabites, you Ammonites, you're not going to enter into the congregation, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, because they hired against the Balaam the son of Beer of Peter of Mesopotamia to curse thee. Right, and right now right now, like they're cursing our people right now, man. They're doing all kinds of things to try to keep our people down. It says, nevertheless, the Lord thy power will not hearken unto Balaam, but the Lord thy power turned the curses into a blessing, because the Lord thy power loved thee. All right, so the Lord's gonna give us. He's gonna bless us. Cause right now we're under the curse, but the Lord's gonna is gonna bless us, man. You know, because even during time of you damn Moabites were trying to put curses on our people, man. But the Lord, he blessed us, man. Thou shalt not, Deuteronomy 23:6. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity, um, all the days forever. Yeah, yeah, man. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't want to go too long. So with that, let us say our praises due unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double apostle of GMS, Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect. Shalom to the brothers. Shalom to the brother. GMS Tazadak, the Ban Yahawada. Shalom, brother. So yeah, Shalom. Yabashim Shabakatah.